Box over there? Okay, maybe it's working now somewhat.
What?
I just did a mic test. It's working. It got 14%. No, but how do you switch it to
public? Where is it?
Maybe you can't change it in the middle?
No, you could, yeah. Oh wait, what's going on?
Hi, sorry to...
Another seat?
One more seat. So now Sean really is going to come. So
Not a problem.
really wants.
On YouTube.
Story. We're supposed to be the boxes inside, and everybody puts it there. Then we put it here. The boxes don't need order the market bit. So we get back to that. So we're supposed to have a store, salad, lay the bit soup. The boxes still market
And now it's live.
What?
The truth is, we didn't have to. When we planned it, we had to. Now we don't have to. If we planned it now, we would have.
Maybe. I don't want to lose this wire. Go there. No. I'm going to go there and you'll put it back to me. This wire, I don't know.
Official 720. It's not down yet. Liddeds are typically
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Kindly find your seats. You can wash at the washing station. Kindly find your seats. The program will begin shortly. Kindly find your seats. The program will begin shortly. Good evening, Yud Tes, everybody. Good evening. Good evening, Yud Tes. Good evening. L'chaim, 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 l'brachas, everybody. Good evening, Yud Tes. If you haven't yet, you can charge your glasses with a little l'chaim. L'chaim, everybody. L'chaim, l'bracha, l'chaim. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Kindly find your seats. If you heard me the first time, you can say l'chaim the second. And if you didn't hear me the first time, now you can say l'chaim for the first. So l'chaim v'lebracha, everybody. L'chaim, l'chaim. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Amongst Hasidim, we wish each other tonight a good Yom Tes, and we wish each other, considering that tonight is the Rosh Hashanah for Hasidus, the new year for Hasidus, we wish each other in the language of the Rebbe in his first book, the Hadar Yoim, Shana Tova Tekasemu V'Sechasemu, the Limud Hasidus, the B'dar Hasidus. Each one of us should be blessed with a successful year and a good year in our learning of Hasidus and in the ways of Hasidus. To begin, there's a lot of people that need to be thanked for tonight, and I want to mention some of them. First, I'd like to thank our co-hosts for this evening, Heather and Emmanuel Amar, Perry and Nabi Kaplan, Ronnie and Debbie Collins, Evan and Osnat Feldman, Nibio and Haya Harrison, Mayor and Elza Hirsch, David and Lisa Medina, David Merowitz, David and Lori Putterman, Amicha and Deborah Reese, David and Malky Sebag, Sarah Eldor and Shlomo Simchon, and Jody and Freddie Kansky, and Jacob and Gloria King. Thank you all very much for working with me and helping us make this evening as beautiful as it is. So thank you. Of course, I want to thank Belville and Bela Minkowitz for really pulling it together. My parents, Rabbi and Mrs. New, my uncle and aunt, Raichi and Billy Tridle, my wife, Ita, thank you. And thank you all for coming and joining us, because every face that shows up is what makes it as beautiful as it is. Just before we begin, so as you know, we're celebrating the Alter Rebbe's release from jail, and we'll hear more about that in a moment. Now, there's a short little episode that I'd like to share with you that took place while the Alter Rebbe was in jail. So he was interviewed a number of times by a number of officers, and they were learned in Bible and the Torah. And the Alter Rebbe was asked the following question. When the Torah describes the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, at one point, God announces to Adam, Adam, where are you? Ayeka, in the language of the verse, Ayeka, where are you? So this officer asks the Alter Rebbe, does God not know where Adam is? Why would he ask, Ayeka, where are you? So the Alter Rebbe responded and said, God certainly knows where he is geographically. But God is asking Adam, do you know where you are? Not geographically, but where are you in your life? Where are you going? Where are you heading? Where are you coming from? What are your ideas? What are your aspirations? And the Alter Rebbe continued, a person could be living on this earth for X amount of years, and he named the number of years at this officer's age, and still not know where he is. And so the verse, God reaches out to every one of us, every human, and asks, Ayeka, where are you? What are you doing? Where are you going? Where are we heading? What is this all for? And in some ways, as I'm sure we'll hear more tonight, all of Hasidus is just to hammer that question home. Where are you? And as you learn more and more of Hasidus, that question becomes deeper and deeper. Where are you? Where are we going? What are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to achieve? And that, I think, will set the tone for some of what we're going to hear tonight in addressing that question, how we find the answer, but also how we properly ask the question. So with that, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce our MC for this evening, Mr. Evan Feldman.
L'chaim. Nothing like a l'chaim to start. L'chaim. You have to be careful, the podium is slanted. So, in typical MTC and Chabad fashion, Rabbi New asked me a little while ago if I would MC tonight. So I said, what do I have to do? The rabbi said, you don't have to do anything, just, you know the people speaking, introduce the people. I said, okay, sounds easy. I remember him asking me once and I said no, so I said I would do it. I told the rabbi I'm doing this because he once asked me and I said no. He said no, I never asked you, you never said no. So I said, oh, okay. Today, because I'm a conscientious and caring person who wants to make a good impression, that's a hint. If you don't like what I have to say, pretend you liked it. I sent an email to Levi and to Rabbi New asking, can you please send me the agenda? What do you expect? What am I supposed to do? And Levi wrote back with a schedule of who the speakers are for tonight, the timing of the meal, which already we're not on, but okay. And it said, I'm going to introduce Yud Tes Kislev for the room, which nobody told me. So I figured that is a subliminal message, because I actually spent some time learning today about Yud Tes Kislev. And I was going to say exactly what Lady said. So I don't have a lot to say now. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. I actually did this twice before. Once I emceed, once I spoke. And somebody told me I was great, so I'll be okay today. So I figured my daughter tonight told me that's win-win. Either you'll be great, they'll love you, or you'll be terrible, they'll never ask you again. So, as the rabbi said, Yud Tes Kislev is the Rosh Hashanah of Hasidism. We say Good Yom Tov today. It's the new year of Hasidism. And it's essentially the new year of Hasidism, as Levi said, because it's when the Alter Rebbe was liberated from prison in 1798, 223 years ago today. Ultimately, the reason this is the Yom Tov of Hasidism is because that was the time that we can pinpoint explosive growth in the learning and study of Torah. Ultimately, that led to the building of Chabad houses. It's why the MTC is here. It's why we're here. It's why I'm here. And for that alone, the fact that I'm here is enough to maybe celebrate a Yom Tov. And I actually think that the reason Rabbi New really asked me to do this today, I don't know where he's sitting, but I told him I thought there was a subliminal message today that I would announce when I'm standing here. The rabbi's been asking me for about 3 or 4 years before COVID, so that's like 6 years now, to learn with him one-on-one. And I haven't said yes yet, but in researching this, one of the things that I noted was a specific requirement to repeat the story of the Alter Rebbe's liberation from jail, the same way as we repeat the Pesach story time and time again, so that we should know it and we should learn it and we should act on it. And I think that's a subliminal message that I need to soon say yes to the rabbi. So, thank you, Itchy. So, before the arrest of the Alter Rebbe, the scholarly elite of the time saw him as fomenting revolution by empowering the lower uneducated classes, and by that I thought people like me, the unlearned people, of having equal access to God as those who are more learned. It seems unimaginable today, as we all have access to Tanya, to multiple language of books and podcasts and rabbis and Chabad houses, but in those days that was really a difficult challenge. The Alter Rebbe was inspiring people, creating excitement, and he essentially was arrested because he created fear of change, and the Tsar at the time was scared of change. When in prison, the Alter Rebbe was reflecting on why he was arrested, and he felt it was because of an edict on high against him. So when he was released, first he thought maybe he shouldn't continue to teach and spread Hasidism and the knowledge and light of Torah, but in fact, he felt the opposite. He was released to spread knowledge of Torah. And not only did he continue, but he actually got more energized and progressed and spread Torah knowledge even more. When he was arrested, the entire Hasidic movement was put at risk, but with his release, it wasn't only saved, it was invigorated. Since the Alter Rebbe's release on the 19th of Kislev, Torah's innermost secrets have continued to be taught. They've been learned, they've been printed, spread at an increasingly rapid pace, with the ultimate goal that this knowledge will illuminate the world and essentially illuminate the darkness. It's said that the light of Torah should shine not only outwardly to the world, but it should also shine within us and within our own homes. This is quite timely. As myself, I think about all of us lighting the Hanukkah menorah in less than a week from today. So with that, we should all take it upon ourselves to increase our own learning, to increase our own light to those around us and outside. And as I look around to this room, really for the first time that we're sitting at tables together as a community with food, not boxes, tablecloth, a bunch of faces that I haven't seen in a while, some that I have. It's really, really nice to be here together, to celebrate together. And before the coming of Hanukkah, to be able to say to everyone, Good Yom Tov today on Yud Tes Kislev, and thank you all for coming and joining with us. So now, only because I don't really have a full agenda, Where's Rabbi Levi? Do I go right to introducing the first speaker? I do. Okay. So it feels perfectly timely to me to introduce someone today who I have multiple different points of connection with. Dr. Morty Schizell. I met his son, Ephraim. Ephraim, you have to refresh me when you were in accounting school. It's a long time ago, 25, 30-ish, more. So we go back a fairly long way. Then we re-encountered Dr. Schizell when I found out that my brother lived across the street from him. And I learned that he's not a huge fan of Halloween decorations. But in this time of Yud Tes Kislev and community and post-COVID, it's post-COVID for me, I know it's sort of still here, but post-COVID to me. In this time of post-COVID where we're focused on community and building community, one of the things that stands out about Morty Schizell is he was a guy that when he wanted to shine his light, had a Chabad house in his house, welcoming people and opening up his house and his own personal time and space to help others. So without further ado, it's a great privilege to introduce Dr. Morty Schizell. And together we're average height, which I think is also fantastic.
My son says, just talk as if it's a dental school meeting. It's not a dental school meeting. But if I'm going to talk, it has to be informal. I mean, I don't hesitate. Whatever I'm unprepared, kind of. What? Like this? I have. Oh, yeah. Okay. This is for singing, no? Okay, I'm just going to share a couple, a little bit of personal stuff, I guess, which might be fairly boring. I don't know. Stop me, interrupt me, whatever. First of all, the introductions were very challenging. To the day, to the yontif, the union of change is Givaldic. It's all about change. Change is not very easy. In fact, when Rabbi New first asked me to talk, he said, just say a few things about, how you change, how Hasidus changed you. What's changed, yeah? So let's be honest, let's be straight. Listen, this is me. I have not changed. I am the same guy I always am. I always was, probably always will be. Change is not, yeah. Having said that, let me give you one tiny little glimpse into my history with Hasidus. I remember there's an image of me one summer running off to daven mincha in the Lubavitch Yeshiva. You see, I had just started davening in the Lubavitch Yeshiva, I don't know how much before, a few months before, maybe a year or two. And for my wife, my dear wife's name is Bracha. I married Bracha because she was a power of Yiddishkeit. Look at her name is Bracha. I mean, now in Maimonides, everybody's Bernice. Her name is Bracha, and they're starting to learn that. And I was so proud of that. However, when I started making some of these changes, for some reason, I guess he was threatened. Anyway, here I was, running off to daven mincha at the Lubavitch Yeshiva, and I stopped at the cloakroom and picked up a windbreaker, just, and ran off, and she stopped me, and she, wow, you're going to be one of those, you're going to be ultra-Orthodox, you're going to be a student, you're going to be wearing a black coat, and wow, was she upset? I didn't realize that some changes had happened. Not in me, but in the way I did some things, perhaps. Yeah. Can you imagine what happened when I got a black hat a few months later? It wasn't easy. But this sort of introduced some of the challenges that I lived with for quite a few years after that. Maybe to put a little bit of my connection to the Lubavitch Yeshiva, or this whole thing, let me tell you a little bit of one of the sources of how I got here. I went through public school. I did a little bit of learning, but the cheder after school went to Talmud Torah. So I knew that very Ivrit, right? Like, wow. I went to a Hebrew-speaking camp. I went to Kaplan. I was a waiter there. So I got a good Jewish education. Not enough so that, I was in the same league as Bracha. Bracha was Givaldic. She took me to the Ulam on Friday night with Habonim, right? I never went to shul on Friday. I never did anything on Friday night. I did very little about Shabbos. On Friday night, she took me to where they danced and sang. It was Zionist stuff, perhaps. And however, when I put that jacket on, when I put that black hat, and she had. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit how I got there, right? How I got there. So eventually I did what I was supposed to do. I went to public school, high school, university. I got the proper degrees, all of which were aiming at making me competent at earning a living, and I should be able to support myself. I'm in dental school, and here I am, I don't know, 35, 39, 30, somewhere around there, yeah? And I'm, by that time, once a week teaching, and as luck would have it, as coincidence would have it, I'm teaching in the Strathcona Anatomy building of the medical school, which is where the dental school labs and the dental lecture rooms were. And there I was, and suddenly I got to meet my friend, my high school friend that I hadn't seen in many, many years. Hershey Wachowski was a professor, he had just become a full professor of anatomy, and his job was to hire a replacement for somebody that left. And that person's name was Dr. Brower. This is a professor from Harvard, right? Well, I used to sneak out of the lab mid-morning, every Friday morning, just to go say hi to Hershey and touch base with them. We hadn't had a chance to meet in years. And Dr. Brower, whom Hershey had just participated in hiring, was kind of like his boss and the only Jewish guy around in the faculty that Dr. Brower could refer to. He would come in, running there, how do I do this and where do I... After a while, he started to realize that mid-morning, usually I was there and we were schmoozing and maybe having a coffee. And suddenly he started turning up pretty regularly. So here's three guys sitting in this room with white coats, two of us having coffee. After a few months, I'm having coffee. I sort of quipped at this guy with the long white beard and the black hat and the, Yanko, why aren't you having coffee? I didn't call him Yanko in those days. It was, and he kind of ignored me, right? Because I guess Hershey and I were kind of the seniors, the old guys around there. But I kept teasing him. I don't know what it was, but I kept teasing him. Listen, Dr. Brower, I know about kashrut. Is there a kashrut problem with the coffee? No, Morty, don't worry. And this went on for week after week, and I couldn't resist the temptation. I just kept teasing him. And if you know Dr. Brower, he finally blew up. Morty, you don't know what you're talking about. And boy, he pushed me back into the corner. And he said, listen, if you want to talk about this, you want to learn? Oh boy, there was a challenge. I couldn't resist because every Jewish word he had came up with this funny Russian accent, this Slavish Russian accent, right? He couldn't pronounce the Hebrew word properly. All I can tell you is for the rest of that year, for an hour, both of us disappeared in the middle of Friday morning at the lecture room across from Hershey Wachowski's office, which was empty. What's it called? It's called coincidence. It was empty for that hour for the rest of the year, and we sat down beside Mamash, a human skeleton hanging like you see in the movies or in the comic books, a real human skeleton, and we sat at the table beside it, and we sat down and learning. How the learning started, when he challenged me, he said, well, if you want to learn, what do you want to learn? And I tried. I was going to be very sophisticated with him, and, let's try Mishnayos. He jumped at it. I thought I would impress him. Which Mishnayos do you want to learn? So I thought I remembered that Megillah was short and easy or something. So I said, you want me to bring a sefer? He said, no, I'll bring. Well, sure enough, the first time he brought 2 copies of a Mishnah that I had never seen in my life. It was It was what's the Hebrew Mishnayos? Kahadi, right? It's a Givaldic Mishnayos. It has a running commentary in modern Hebrew, which makes the whole thing. I had an old beat up thing from his grandfather, I think. Anyway, yeah. So when we started learning, I started to read. I do modern Hebrew, yeah. And after a while, I ran into words and ideas I didn't quite understand. And suddenly was this guy who couldn't pronounce Hebrew properly because it was all self-taught. He knew what the words were. He knew the concepts were. And for the first time, having learned Torah in Talmud Torah and all kinds of stuff where things were selected for the first time, first of all, we were learning this thing. We started at the beginning and we didn't select. We went word by word, sentence by sentence, chapter by chapter. And I was being introduced to the concepts and what was being done in an adult way that I had never had before. The stuff was always programmed to make it whatever, interesting, exciting. It was amazing. And as the year went by, he kept teasing me. He wanted to learn Festive. Can we learn Festive? And I don't know what it was in me. I kept pushing him away. I don't know what. I just realized there's something dangerous here, right? The year went by. And we completed that whole book of Mishnah. Where do we go from here? The next year came. That lecture room was no longer available. We had to find a place if we were going to continue learning. And we started with stuff that went on. We landed up in the Chabad house on Peel Street. And I opened the Tanya for the first time in my life. And that blew me away. This wasn't about all these sophisticated concepts and all this intellectual stuff, and even a lot of the Torah stuff. Suddenly, we were learning about me. This was amazing. Tanya was talking about me. He was talking to me, about me, suggesting, implying that the Torah was about me, or to me, or like suddenly things were relevant, and talking about stuff I had never heard about before, and it wasn't very long into it where I was sold. I mean, it was, wow. From there, I just can't tell you. If we went on from having, I didn't go very far in Tanya because Tanya is a toughie, really, to start with. And we went on to Renat and a few other things, and I became very comfortable. Hasidus just introduced me to the fact that there is a relevance to all of Judaism, to Yiddishkeit, to Jewish learning especially, to Torah on all its levels, no matter what you pick up. There is a relevance to it which is often ignored. It's often people just walk right by it and don't even feel it, don't even see it. They don't realize it. It's talking to us about, right? But you know what? If I go on talking about me, it's going to take too long. We're not going to get anywhere. Let me here. I made some notes here. I'm not following my notes. Okay, so let me tell you. I don't know, it's a year or two later. Although one of the things I learned is one doesn't learn Hasidus by yourself. I mean, you just can't do that kind of thing. As much as I love learning these Maimorim from, like, if you haven't learned Renat, I mean, everybody, you just have to. I mean, you don't understand so much if you don't learn Renat. It's just the beginning of everything. Anyway, having done all this stuff and getting excited by it, I decided to try a little bit. I know I wasn't supposed to, but I picked up a sefer from the previous Rebbe by myself. I started to learn a mimer by myself, and it was lovely. Here I was doing it, and it was going, except I kept running into this one word that kept getting repeated over and over. It just kept emphasizing it, like not once, not twice, but I don't remember how many times. Finally, I read this word must be important. Yet I could get the gist of the mimer. I got on the phone. Yankel, I called Brower. By that time, we were friends. Yeah, I called him. Come on, there's this one word, right? It's a small word. It comes over. Tell me, can you help me read this thing? It's Lamed, Beis, Chaf, Nun, right? And, can you recognize Lamed, Beis, Chaf, Nun, Lachain? No, what is that? Is it? No, what does it go? Ulachei. What? Hey, vilachei. I don't remember the words. I can't read properly either. All I can tell you is suddenly that hit me like a ton of bricks, because that's a word that we say in the Yom Kippur, in the Rosh Hashanah davening, over and over and over again. And in that davening, it's done in a way where you can't, it hits you on the head because it repeats itself 3-4 times over a short, Ulechein, 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 and wow, it's beautiful poetry. At the shar, wow, the choir comes in, whoa, Magivaldik, they have a, right? But ulechein means, well, it can mean two things. It can mean therefore, which is kind of the obvious meaning, or it can mean like, no, it can mean lechein, is there a question, like, where are you going from here? What do you really mean with your time? What do you mean? Bring your fear, bring your respect. What does that mean? Like, where are you? Like somebody said, who was it? The master of ceremony said, "Where are you at?" Right? That's what Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah and all those big holidays are all about. And nu, where are you at? So I'm going to finish now. I'm going to finish by telling you finally, I found MTC, Rabbi Nu. Suddenly, look. Like, where are you at? And now what's next? And now what are you going to do with what you earned? And now what are you going to do with what you've learned? What are you going to do with what you knew? Knew? Right? Like in the middle of Russia, in the middle of Yom Kippur davening, knew? Yeah? Rabbi Nu has redefined the word for me. What l'chein means is takeaway. There's something called takeaway in it, right here in this shul. There's always, right? Now, Rabbi Nu, when he learns Hasidus, and you're learning about these lofty ideas about God and you and God and you, and he said, whoa, this is about your marriage. This is about how you treat your kids. This is about how you treat your wife. This is real, right? And that's the same here, and that's why I'm here, and hopefully you're going to help me continue learning.
Wow, it's hard to speak after food. This is only half the hall and it's very loud. So it's hard to speak when it's really noisy. So I'm going to ask everyone to please tone it down a little bit if we can. Please put your phones on silent. Only some people hear me. So if you haven't figured it out yet, we're going to listen to a speaker, we're going to eat some food, then we're going to listen to another speaker, then we eat more food. So it's now my time to introduce our second speaker. And it's really also a great privilege and honor to introduce Haya Harrison, someone who I know for a long time, and as tonight's a night about community, and the MTC is a community, so the people, at least that are close to MTC, know Haya, but I also know Haya outside of the MTC. And at the table, I asked Yirmiyahu, her husband, what's a good way to introduce Haya? Because I really only know her as this person that was always worried about other people. I was very involved with Federation before, and Haya, every time I would see her, had an idea about a program for education, for outreach, for less privileged people, for less observant people, for very observant people, for people that were off the derech, for people that didn't find the derech. And what Yirmiyahu told me is you hear a lot about people that have ideas and then want to tell someone else to do them. Haya is the opposite. She has ideas and then she figures out how to do them. So without further ado, it's a great privilege to introduce Haya Harrison. Oh, and I was supposed to say L'chaim. L'chaim.
They're all my friends. Okay, can you hear me okay? So I didn't listen to my husband and I wrote a speech. Not everyone can speak like Yirmiyahu Harrison. So often, when teaching first aid classes, I ask participants to perform what I call the headline test. Frame a situation as it would appear in a headline in the news. This immediately brings to focus whether their choices are safe, an exercise in injury prevention. For example, so I'll say to my students, 10-year-old seen crossing busy intersection with two younger siblings, or 5-year-old asks to play outside alone. It helps give some perspective on their decision-making. So I couldn't help but do the headline test when Rabbi New asked me to speak at tonight's Yud Tes Kislev evening. So what's the title? Hasidic rabbi asks female congregant to share her personal reflections on Hasidus. He laughed and he heard this already. That's good. An evening celebrating the release of the Alter Rebbe, founder of the Chabad movement from jail, author of the Tanya. Yud Tes Kislev is the Rosh Hashanah of Hasidism. So back to the headline test. What perspective do we gain from this exercise? Well, we're all part of a revolution, beneficiaries, each and every one of us, men and women and children. And so I consider myself blessed to be included. Chabad is inclusive. As the Rebbe said, no Jew is to be left behind. And so what is Chabad and Hasidus all about? It was born out of a spiritual darkness and a need for healing. Hasidus is the remedy. And in fact, the Rebbe said the very purpose of Hasidus is to heal the spiritual darkness. Tradition on the one hand, and revolution on the other. Rooted in the deepest, most precious secrets of Torah, Hasidus was and continues to be disseminated globally, enabling every Jew to understand divine concepts and internalize them. If the internet is the democratization of knowledge, Chabad Hasidus is the democratization of learning the inner dimension of Torah, accessible and actually destined for everyone at their level. Revolutionary. The Alter Rebbe was jailed for this and freed, upending the status quo. And this was the message, that spreading Hasidus everywhere was the right thing to do, to light up the world, to inspire and connect, to heal. Learning and understanding Hasidus does this. Our attitude is how we look at the world. Hasidus, among other things, provides us with an attitude of how to look at the world, how to understand the personal and communal challenges, the private and public moments of our lives. Chabad, Chachma, Bina, Das, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. The mind rules the heart. Hasidus had developed these concepts really long before we had terms like executive functioning, emotional regulation, emotional intelligence, social responsibility. Hasidus helps me develop a lens to understand and navigate the events occurring around me, my relationships, myself, and why I am here. Many years ago, 30 or more, I was looking for answers to these questions. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is a soul? Why was I born a Jew? Why was I born a woman? What does this all mean? And through a series of events, a group of my friends began to ask those questions and explored the answers by delving deeper into our roots that we were all blessed with, thanks to our families who planted the seeds of our Jewish identities. Thanks, Mom. We started to learn Torah and Hasidus. So what would I tell that young woman if I met her today? The way I think I would explain it is that Hasidus is a template, a paradigm, a tool, a key to unlock, to decode life's challenges and blessings on a personal level and a universal one. Hasidus is the thread that weaves it all together. Those same questions I asked about life and its deepest mysteries, life, death, blessings, loss, are infused with meaning and purpose and trust. Trust that there is a plan and that ultimately it's good. That life's blessings and challenges are not random. Their meaning may be hidden, and yes, sometimes difficult. Thank you. Sometimes painful and seemingly cruel. But it's not a lonely planet. I'm part of something bigger than myself. Hashem's plan, Hashgacha Pratis. What does that mean? Divine providence. In each moment, I can choose to understand what is my purpose. How can I make a dwelling place for God in this world? Make a space in my life, the community, my relationships at work and at home, my marriage and family life, chance encounters and random events. As a Jewish woman living at this time, I try to use all the tools that God gave me to tend his garden and his people. It is a practice, an intentional application of a set of sacred beliefs. Each day, in every opportunity, I can do the work to uncover meaning and discover my purpose. It can translate into making sense of the madness and mayhem, or accepting that it's beyond me, beyond my comprehension. Trusting that my partner in heaven has a plan. But it can also mean, what does he want from me? Not what's in it for me. What is my role? What is my responsibility? Jonathan Sachs, who we lost, asks, if God exists, how can evil exist? Why do bad things happen to good people? Rabbi Sachs says the question of evil is actually central to faith. Faith as protest, he says. God created a world with freedom to do good. I gave you freedom and responsibility. The world that is, he says, is not the world that it ought to be. Action, mitzvahs, learning. If I do one good deed, righting an injustice, I make the world that is a little closer to how it ought to be. Hashem's call to our personal and collective responsibility. We're all here tonight. Personally, it's incredible to think about this, impacted by the events of Yud Tes Kislev. The Rebbe magnified the work of spreading the wellspring of Chassidus and the mitzvah of reaching every Jew with love. The Rebbe directed his Chassidim that the call of the hour of this generation was to reach each individual, touching and transforming their lives in countless ways, inspiring them to grow, reminding us to appreciate and invest in the blessing that God wants a relationship with all of us. Wishing you all a good Yom Tov. Thank you.
Aaron, is there more wine?
Okay, so now you know the deal. We eat some food and then we have to listen to someone again. And everyone was really good last time. It got quiet. The phones were off. I'm like the referee. I have to prepare everybody for the speaker. So as soon as we're quiet, we have the privilege of introducing our last speaker for the evening. No pressure, Barry. I could see people have been drinking more and eating more. Getting quiet is taking longer. That was good. Okay, we're doing good. We're almost there. So our last speaker of the evening to bring us home is Perry Kaplan, a longtime friend, member of the MTC community, a guy who, if you know him, is always happy, always smiling, whether things are good or not good, always open to help others, always says yes to what you ask him. Next year, they'll probably ask you to be the MC. So I'm looking forward to that. And without further ado, we look forward to hearing from Perry. L'chaim to Perry.
Hi, everybody. Yud Tes. Could not be happier than to being up here right now. Thank you, Rabbi Q, for asking me to be up here. So, building on the previous speaker. Can't hear me? Hello? Yes, 1, 2. We're good. Okay, Rabbi. Building on what Haya and Morty were talking about, and unlike Yermi's advice to wing it, I also elected to write a speech because, Putterman told me to write a speech. So the idea for me talking about how Hasidus has changed me is actually a double question. The first question is, how has it changed me? How do I operate differently? And the second is, how technically have I been changed by Hasidus, by Tanya? So first thing I'll do is start with some show and tell. I love show and tell. Show and tell. Show and tell. This is a tiny Likutei Amorim. It was gifted to me almost 30 years ago when I had an office on Chabanel. And essentially it was a gift from some Bachrim on Mivsoyim. And if you'll bear with me, it says, the inscription reads, Perry, may God bless you with spiritual Physical Happiness, and it's signed by Mendel Matzov and Yudi Dukes. And I actually reached out to Mendel Matzov, who I haven't spoken to since he was a little pisher running around the Chabad house on Chabanel. And I sent him an email. I said, is this the young bacher that was with Yudi on Chabanel at 111? And he says, yeah, that's me. So it turns out he's a Chabad shliach at the University of Wisconsin. And I think that's where he's from. It was a real sweetheart of a guy. I don't really remember him that well. But Yudi I remember because Yudi and I on Rosh Chodesh would either text, once in a blue moon, call, what's doing. He was always interested in my progress. Am I on the derech? Do I know what a derech is? Am I off the derech? What happened? Are you married? Are you, never mind, let's not go there. So this book was my initial introduction to Hasidus. Couldn't read a word in it. But sweetheart Yudi would stay a little longer while Mendel went to the adjoining offices. It was like Cheers. It was like 111 Chabanel. Johnny was there. He was on my floor, John Finkelstein. And the boys would circulate. It was a very friendly floor. It was all Jews. And everybody was willing to get the blood pressure. And it was nice. So he would stay a little longer and he would read me the daily Tanya, and it was always on a Friday, and tell me a little bit about it. He would read the Hebrew and explain it to me. Whatever, it's like, it was very nice, but it was a thing, right? Like, I enjoyed literally seeing this guy. So I had a lasting relationship with him. Hold on. This is where Yirmiyahu said, what do you need a speech for? So sadly, Yudi Alav Shalom passed away. He went into the hospital about 16, 17 months ago, diagnosed with COVID. He left behind him a beautiful wife and children, and he was really a special Jew. It actually, nothing to do with my speech, but what did he end up doing for a living was putting people together that were interested in learning, on the phone. This is a long time he's been doing this. So Yudi's neshama should have a nice aliyah. 6 weeks ago, I'm driving from downtown, driving down to Cary. I notice a cop behind me. Okay, 10 minutes later, I'm making a left. I'm going on to the 40. Now he's right behind me. I'm wondering, I stay in my lane, he's following me. I move over to the next lane, he follows. 5 minutes, I waited in that lane. And then I moved again to trick him. It didn't work. The lights come on, I get pointed to the curb. At this point, my first thought is, all innocent, what did I do? I wasn't speeding, I didn't have a phone in my hand, my seatbelt was on. So my next thought was, I don't have time for this shtiyot. I'm busy, I'm running late, I'm already on a call, I have a Zoom to prepare for, and I have an in-person meeting in about 40 minutes. It's one distraction after another, and now this. It's officially become one of those days. I'm feeling inconvenienced, I'm feeling pressured, stressed, and a little hot under the collar. Too many thoughts were just running around my head at the time. And then, enough. Hashem runs the world. And suddenly, like magic, I'm a lot less, I don't care what's happening next at that point. I'm good. Hashem runs the world. So the question is, how do you go from feeling like that to feeling like Hashem runs the world and actually meaning it and not making it an expression, a go-to platitude, like a rationalization? My main concentration, my kavana, is that my thoughts don't control me. I know it sounds like a t-shirt somewhere that you see, my thoughts don't control me. Come on, man, keep on working with me. Keep on working, come on. My main concentration. So it's a very pop psych simple kind of saying that my thoughts don't control me. Barry Gordon, a professor of neurology and cognitive science at Johns Hopkins, said, quote, "We are aware of a tiny fraction of the thinking that goes on in our minds, and we control only a tiny part of our conscious thoughts." Chassidus, specifically Tanya, offered me a system to slow down, to reflect, reset, and improve. Tanya, for me, it's like the martial arts of thought control. 3 weeks ago, the rabbi asked me to speak. The topic, how Chassidus has changed me. I sat down to draft, and all the reasons for saying yes, all the big changes that I saw in myself, poof, were gone, disappeared. My examples are ordinary. An example of change, how I reacted and controlled my reactions when getting pulled over. Seeing somebody in a room that I walk into who has wronged me. Working with difficult people. Tanya is about reactions. Before Torah, I read a lot of pop psychology. There was one book that really struck me by Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast and Slow. He explores the relationship between two modes of thought. System one is impulsive, automatic, and intuitive. This kind of happens when you're not really thinking about what's coming out of your mouth. And the second system is about being thoughtful, deliberate, and calculating. It's a fascinating book. Kahneman describes how the two systems interact and tell us how we think and how we should feel. It was just a very enjoyable read. It was like something that caught my attention, this type of topic. Around the same time, my dad, who saw my Tanya and couldn't read the title, took the book and he went over to Rodal and he said, "I want another book like this." And my dad came back to me with Eden Steinsaltz's Learning Torah. Okay, so I picked up the book. I was reading this book and like, wow, it was just another system of thought. And I thought like, wow, it's for a religious text. And I wasn't prejudiced against reading something Jewish at the time, just something that I just wouldn't have picked up. For a religious text, it really keyed into the human psyche and understood the human condition and was making suggestions on how to proceed and how to operate. A common thread in all the psychology books that I was reading, there was a lot. There was talking about the self and talking about how to manipulate events around you. And like, I could be very crafty, but I'm not manipulative. And it didn't like sit very well with me. But they all roundly agreed on one thing, that we're just like these evolved animals that are helplessly driven by our primal desires and our basic needs. At this point, I'm turning 40, and David Futterman. 40.
It was there.
Sorry, there'll be questions and answers after the. I was turning 40, and David Futterman schlepped me to Freddie and Michael's lunch and learn with the rabbi. I remember the rabbi was teaching, giving over something, and he stops, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, what? And he's like smiling, and he's like chuckling. I go, what it is? Maybe there's like egg on my face from one of the Montreal kosher sandwiches. No, he says, Fischel, you're staring at me so intensely. And I was. I finally met Rabbi Nu. He fitted me with the hook. I still have like the hole didn't close yet. And within months, I was reintroduced to Tanya. I reread Steinsaltz. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi authored a modern, sophisticated view, the nature of human psyche and its struggles. By 2001, I completed the 5-volume series, Lessons in Tanya, for the first time. All of this brings me to this moment right here, standing before you. after many cycles of learning Tanya rather, I can tell you what Tanya is not. It's not instant inspiration. It's not an easy read. It takes help to learn and discipline, and it's a long, short road, and Tanya is a journey. But I can tell you after all these years what Tanya is from my experience. And like, seriously, folks, like what I'm talking about here, it's like an onion. I'm like at the top level of what's going on here. Tanya to me are a pair of glasses for me to frame the world differently, looking at things differently. Tanya in Hasidus is pure heart. And when you take Hasidus, it actually injects life and meaning into Torah and mitzvahs. Hasidus also makes joy an obligation. Think about that. Like we're obligated to be joyful. It's like mind-blowing. The Baal Shem Tov said, if tears open the heavenly gates, joy demolishes them. One of my issues was, pop psychology was dismissing spirituality, whereas Tanya was like not shying away from my primal wants and needs. It recognizes my struggles and deals with them in spirituality and intellectually makes it about mind versus heart. So how do I get from hot under the collar, feeling super pressured to Hashem runs the world? Well, Tanya teaches that it starts with awareness. And I'm generally aware of my surroundings. I listen to myself speak. I can speak in a room, in a showroom. I could make a presentation. I could see based on how people are reacting, how to tailor my pitch, or not necessarily a pitch, but whatever I'm thinking about, to get the reactions that I want. But the awareness we're talking about here is not about being aware of our surroundings. It's at a higher level. It's about being aware of your thoughts, being aware of the thoughts that are popping into your head. One of the things I try to do is like a cell phone. My thoughts, I try to have them like a cell phone, something independent from me, something I could look at the screen, I could manipulate it. I choose what I want to see versus just being led around by circumstance. But slowing down is one thing. I have feelings. And if I'm feeling aggravated, don't tell me I shouldn't be aggravated. I have plenty of reasons to be aggravated. You can't choose how you feel, or can you? Tanya taught me that I can decide what to think about, and how I think changes how I feel. The one idea completely changed my perceptions. In the 1820s, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Lubavitch coined the term "Trach good, design good." Think good, it'll be good. Is that just more wishful thinking? Just another expression? No, it's Hasidus saying mental control is heart control, and the system works. Think of the reverse, some nut job, like, going crazy, road raging in traffic, completely out of control. The complete polar opposites. The Tanya says that where our thoughts travel, our emotions are not far behind. So I've worked on becoming more aware. You kind of get used to dealing with all the noise of the world, but from Tanya, it's kind of like to squelch it, to mute it a little bit, so you can actually start understanding how your thoughts are leading your feelings. So being aware means reviewing your thoughts and actions to improve yourself. Again, my kavana is my thoughts do not control me, because Tanya brings that my thoughts are not me. It's pretty wild. They're only a reflection of what my brain and my heart are up to. So I was making progress. I was catching myself. At this point, the Alter Rebbe said, it's all about content, Natalie. Having wholesome content at the ready. The Baal Shem Tov taught, where your head's at, that's where you're at. The Alter Rebbe suggests reviewing a teaching or memorizing Tehillim and repeating them to replace negativity. I learn on Sundays. I try to learn, listen, read something for next week's Parsha. During the week, I think about those things. I'm not reading the 101. I'm reading something a little bit more nuanced. and it helps to elicit like more profound thoughts, like bring to the surface things that are a little bit more important than being stressed out over a business deal or whatever. So there's many kinds of negatives that can pull you down. And when I say you, I don't mean you, I mean myself. There can be like external reactions to someone or something, or they can be a mean thought that I had about someone. Nobody here. Look what happens. When I catch myself, I think, how could I ever have thought that? And Tanya's next lesson is not to mull it over, not to get down on yourself, and not even to engage with it. It says stop giving energy to these thoughts. The Tanya formula recognizes failure and resolves to correct it and says, move on, don't dwell. And I used to be quite a dweller on these things. Tanya also speaks about deeper anxiety issues. Not all negative thoughts come from day-to-day experiences. The Alter Rebbe cautions that serious problems are not solved by replacing the negative with happy thoughts. He tells us not to rely on ourselves. Talk it over with someone who knows about you, who cares about you. Find a mashpia, find a mentor that you can discuss things with, because you cannot always pull yourself up by your own heartstrings. You have to surrender a little bit of yourself in order to overcome things that are serious in your life. It took me a lot of training. I used mitzvahs to help me train. How? Because when I see a l'chaim, I'll deliberately slow down. I'll think of the mezonahs to eat beforehand. I'll deliberately make a bracha, and that small moment of delayed gratification is what helps to slow down and like process things. And I mean, honestly, I move at a very fast level. A lot of people coming and talking and doing, and it's like, it's how I'm used to operating. But it comes to a point when you're trying to grow a little bit that you actually have to start listening to your brain and changing how you are, how you behave, and what your behavior is. You're looking to do, to become a little bit more of a refined person. One second. I got the big clothes coming up here, kids. Wait, what? You care about the cops? Yes. I took that out of the story because it's irrelevant. What's relevant are my reactions to it. Yeah. Fine. He walks up to the door and says, "Mr. Kaplan," at which point already he's like on family name basis with me, and he tells me, "You didn't renew your license." Basically told me I was he let me go and pursue that. Just to conclude a little bit here, after you're unable to really resolve something on yourself, it's time to really give yourself up, give up part of your self-reliance, and ask your Creator for help. And that's where Hashem runs the world comes into play. It's like replying Baruch Hashem when someone asks, "How are you?" It shouldn't be an expression. I once replied Baruch Hashem to Tuki Treidels, "How are you?" Her reaction was, "Oh, very nice, you're religious, but I asked how you are." It's challenging to stay in charge of your thoughts and feelings. Your brain is such a sophisticated device. You have the ability to control it yourself. You don't need to be told. You don't need to be coached, but you do need some methodology in order to get there. So how has Hasidus changed me? Baal Shem Tov asks, when will Mashiach come? When these teachings burst forth outside. And yet, his concluding thought, there's an even higher level. So you work on yourself and you get to the point where you walk into that room and that special person who's there. Fill in the blank. They've insulted you, they've hurt you, they've done damage. You're not feeling too happy about walking into the room, the restaurant, the shop, wherever. And now you've elevated yourself and you move to neutral. So it's like, okay, finished. I'm not affected by this person anymore. Shem runs the world. It's not, forget it. I'm not going to hold a grudge because it's not healthy for me. But the real challenge, and it's just like my main challenge is walk in, see that person, feel kind of glad that you moved to neutral and not wanting to kill him, and turning it into joy, turning it into actually liking that person. And that's really quite the challenge. And that's my challenge. I've done it a couple of times, but I'm not that holy, and pretty much that's my challenge. So L'chaim, may you all pick up your own copy of the Tanya. Levi has a series that's running chapter by chapter, page by page. It's really quite wonderful. And that concludes this talk.
Thank you, Bishop. And now, don't leave. We have the Alter Rebbe's Niggin. Rabbi Nu is going to lead us. Then we have benching, and then we have Farbrengen and fun.
Friends, tonight which celebrates the Rosh Hashanah of the Chabad Hasidic movement, I want to mention a Chassid, a true Chassid of the MTC, who is not with us here physically tonight, who left us way too soon, whose birthday we marked yesterday, the 17th of Kislev. Of course, I'm referring to Mr. Michael Chernak, Morty Schizell, and Pesach Halevi, whose presence, I'm sure, is very much felt by many of you, and who no doubt is deriving much nachas on high from our gathering this evening. And we want to take this opportunity to bless his wife and children and grandchildren with strength, nachas, and simcha. Well, not right, 1 second, not ready yet. It's my sad duty also to mention, as I'm sure you're all aware, of the tragic murder yesterday of a young man in Jerusalem. His name, Eli K. Eliyahu David Ben Avi and Rivka. I should just tell you that I'd heard that he was a close friend of Yehud Haskelevici, Mercher's son. They learned in yeshiva together, and they were soldiers together. I called Yehuda today, and he was just coming back from the funeral. At the funeral, and you can probably see this online, the hundreds that had gathered to bring Eli to his final rest were singing a melody, a Chabad song composed by the Alter Rebbe, whose liberation we celebrate tonight. And the words of the song, incredibly, Tzom Malach Nafshi, Kol Malach Absari, my soul thirsts for you, my flesh longs for you. That's the song they spontaneously were singing as they brought their dear friend to Har Menuchot. We are about, all of us now, I don't have the words, it's not a song and it's not a prayer, it's much deeper than that. But there's a sacred melody also composed by the Alter Rebbe, who's again the founder of Chabad. It's a song that's only sung on special occasions like tonight, or under the chuppah, and other sacred holidays. This clip we're about to see is the conclusion of a Fabrengen where these songs are sung. Actually, there'll be three: introduction to the Alter Rebbe's melody, and I'll point it out when it comes, the Alter Rebbe's melody, and a final song, which is a joyous song. Now, friends, when this song is sung, we are connecting to Jews everywhere. We're connecting to Jews not only here in this world, but souls that left us. This is in many ways beyond even a prayer. It comes from the deepest place of the soul. You may not know it, but I'll ask you please perhaps to close your eyes or no. Look at the Fabrengen, sing with your heart, supplicate the Almighty. Dear God, in these last moments of exile, please strengthen those that have suffered this terrible loss. Please, dear God, surely ad matai, how much longer it is enough. Send us your righteous Mashiach, when we will be reunited with all our loved ones here in this world forever. So again, there's the Nigen Hachana, the preparation Nigen, and I'll point out when the Alter Rebbe's Nigen, that sacred melody begins. The Alter Rebbe's Nigen, the Nigen composed by the Alter
And now, for inspiration, Adam Spiro, who hasn't missed a single Hasidus class, to lead us in benching.
Scared me for a second. I thought I was going to have to say something. Boy, son, Rebel invention. Shem Adonai Mevorach Me'ata Ve'Adonai B'Shus Paran V'Rabbanon V'Rabbaisai Baruch Eloheinu Shachal Mishaloi Baruch Eloheinu Shachal Mishaloi T'Vachayim Baruch Atah Adonai Hazon Esaker
Yeah, look good.